Here we are, this is me in my lab testing a few digital games under Windows 98, but most of them do not work. Now, I know you might be saying, well, you can go online, find the disk images, or hop on eBay, buy used copies. But look, I already paid for these games and I like the idea of running them straight from a folder, no CD in the drive required. So I want to have a go at fixing some of these games. I captured everything and here is what I found. Let's start testing the first game. It is Age of Wonders. So I'll start off with games that have issues that are quite easy to fix. So here we can see, well, we don't see anything. We can hear the voice for the introduction video, but there is no video. This is a codec issue. So in this instance, it's a codec that comes with Windows 98, but I haven't installed it. So we go into the control panel and then to add remove programs, and there's a tab, Windows Setup, and we're looking for the option for multimedia and then click on details, and here we go. Scroll down a little bit, there is video compression, tick the box, press OK, and it will install the required codec. Let's launch the game again and see if it works. There you go, the video is now playing. So with video codecs, it's a bit of a trial and error. You might be able to dig a little bit around and find out which exact codec is required, but usually there are just a few handful of codecs that these old games used. And here we are in the game, everything is working well. And we're off to the next game. This is Freespace. And after launching the executable, we get this message. Could not properly initialize the Microsoft ADPCM codec. The workaround for this one is the same. We need a codec. So we go to Start, Settings, Control Panel, and then Add Remove Programs, click on Windows Setup. And you might have seen it before. There's an option for an audio codec. So click on Multimedia, Details, Audio Compression, install that, and the error message should now disappear. So let's run the executable again. And this time, no error message. And here we are in the game. Everything is looking beautiful. On to the next game. This is B-17 Flying Fortress, the Mighty Eighth. And here we're getting a different error. It is missing a required DLL file. MSVCP60DLL was not found. To resolve this issue, we need to install a Microsoft C++ pack. It is the Visual C++ 6.0 redistribution package. Let's run the setup program again, and this time there is no error message. We get the setup utility where we can choose things like the resolution and other aspects. And here we are in the game. Everything is working well. The next game is Tomb Raider 2. Now, there's nothing wrong with this game, but the very first time we run it, we're getting this setup program where we can change all sorts of aspects. Then the game launches, and after that, the setup utility never is to be seen again. And this applies to quite a few games where you need to create a shortcut to the executable and then add a launch parameter. So here I've created a shortcut in the game folder. I renamed it to something meaningful, and then we change the parameter here, dash setup, and every time we run this shortcut, it will once again bring up the setup program where we can change the resolution. Some of these games are really old and you can crank up the resolution, no problem whatsoever. And here we are in the game. I increased the resolution from the default 640 by 480. It's now running at 1024 by 768 and looking much better. Also amazing is buying games from Instant Gaming, today's video sponsor. It's an authorized reseller of digital game keys, usually cheaper than buying directly from GOG or Steam. I tried it out, bought a game with PayPal, and then you just activate it with GOG, ready to go. If you want to check it out, have a look down below in the video description. Sometimes games are patched with modern operating systems in mind. Thief and Thief 2 are one such case. We can see the executable is looking for a newer version of Windows. I believe this is the new dark engine or something like that. And sometimes we are lucky enough and GOG or Steam, they supply us with the original, the OG executables, and we can find them in the backup subdirectory. So we copy the files that are in there, we paste them into the game directory, overwriting the executable, the default one, and now the game should launch just fine. Now you might have noticed another issue. The introduction video didn't play, and you can see here I will click on the intro button and the video is just not playing. So again, we're missing a specific codec. In this case, it's an Intel Indio codec, and I'm going to install the latest version. This is version 5.03. You can see here. So you just go through the options. You can find these codecs online, but maybe I will upload them to my website and put a link down below in the video description. And we are back in the game. Let's click on intro again, and here we go. Now the introduction video plays as expected. The workaround for Thief 2 is the same. It also uses a newer executable that is not compatible with our Retro PCs. Go into the backup folder, select all the files in there, copy them, paste them into the main game folder, overriding the existing executables, and then the game will launch just fine. Here we are in the game, and it's working just fine. This is System Shock, and just like Thief 2, it also received an upgrade with the game engine. We can see here the executable expects a newer version of Windows. Unfortunately for this one, there is no backup folder. We don't get supplied any original executables. But the good thing is we are not alone in the Retro PC community. So big thanks to OpenRift412. He put together a legacy patch. There are some details here. And this patch is also meant for modern operating systems to restore the original experience, but we can also use it for our retro gaming PC. I put the files into the SS2 legacy patch, and you have to be a little bit careful. Only grab two files, the executable and the cam.config file. So I'm selecting them right here. Then we hit copy, go back to the main game folder, and we're gonna paste those files into here, overwriting the existing executables, and then the game should work just fine. Here we are in the game, everything working just fine. If you enjoyed this video, why not subscribe to my channel or support me through Patreon? You get early access to unreleased videos, and we can have a chat on Discord. Now this issue affects two games I've come across, Blood 2 and also Shogo. Both games will work just fine out of the box, but on a not modern, but on a little bit faster retro PC, let's say you've got a Pentium 4 and the GeForce FX, you will get screen flickering. So you need to enable VSync, but then also go into the advanced options and enable triple buffering. And you can see a lot of these games have heaps of compatibility options that you might want to play around with. If you click on the 3D cards tab, it has some information. Also for sound, you want to select EAX if you've got that, or A3D. Here you can even control the reverb. So it pays to spend some time studying the README file and digging a little bit deeper in all the options. Many games, for example, Hitman Codename 47, we can find there's a copy of nGlide, and that is a problem. Here we're looking at nGlide, the version 2.0, and those are the files that we need to look out for. There are 3 DLL files for the Splash logo, for the Glide API, and then there's a config utility and the README file. So we go back to the game folder, and I'm going to select those Splash DLL files, the Glide DLL files, and then those 3. Oh, I forgot the third one. So yeah, and then I'm deleting them because here I've got PCM with a Voodoo 3. So it's as if you have a real Voodoo 3 installed. You don't want to use nGlide. You want the game to use your real 3dfx Voodoo card. And here we are in the game running on the Glide API on a 3dfx Voodoo 3. And now it gets a little bit more complicated. Let's have some fun with those annoying DLL files. So here we're getting an error about the DHOOK.DLL, which expects a newer version of Windows. Let me right click on that file and see if we can get some information. Sometimes there's a details tab and we can get some more information, but here we are left to guess and figure out what this might be up to. So what I like to do is I create a subfolder. My naming convention is I just call it DLL files, and then any suspicious or weird looking DLL files, I move them into there out of the game folder. I run the game again and I see if that fixes the issue or if there's more going on. Here we go. DHOOK.DLL, cut and paste into the subfolder. And I seem to have not captured this part, but when I run the game now, it insists on a DHOOK.DLL, and it turns out it's a wrapper for the DirectDraw.DLL. So I'm copying the DirectDraw.DLL from the Windows system folder and pasting it into the game folder, and then I rename it to DHOOK.DLL. So the name has changed, but this is now still the DirectDraw.DLL file from the Windows, from the operating system, and the game will now launch just fine. And here we are in the game. This game reminds me of Myst a little bit. Seems to be an adventure game with a lot of exploring, and it uses an interesting engine, sort of 2D and 3D graphics combined, if that explanation makes sense. Delta Force is next. We run the executable and we're getting this error. NETSOCK.DLL expects a newer version of Windows. So when you see a message that says expecting a newer version of Windows, it's usually a wrapper to be compatible with modern operating systems. But here, look at that. Under version, we get some cool information. Dated 2017, novahq.net. So yeah, we have some information here that is very useful. Sometimes DLLs have no information and then you're flying blind, but most of the time there's actually information. So let's create a subfolder, move out that DLL file. I don't like to delete it because you never know if you need it again. And then I noticed this file here, NETSOCK.DLL. So let's just rename it to NETSOCK.DLL, see what happens. Maybe that is the original file. Maybe GOG has left it behind. And it looks like that is the case. The game is launching just fine. And here we are in the game, Delta Force from NovaLogic with those famous voxel graphics. The next game is Descent 3. Straight away we can see the nGlide files. I'm selecting all of them. Time to go because we have a real Voodoo. We want to take advantage of that. The executable opens just fine. We can select the video option. I want to go with the Glide API because that's what we have. You can change all the options, EAX, the speed, and so on. And also some command launch parameters. But when we try to play the game, we get knocked back to the desktop. The issue here is that the executable received some modern patches for modern operating systems. There are two retro patches we can use. There's a patch 1.4, and which is an official patch, and there's an unofficial patch 1.5. Both remove the copy protection, so we don't need to muck around with disk images. Just copy that patch into the game folder. Let's launch Descent 3 again, and boom, there you go. It's running perfectly fine. Here we are in the game, running with the Glide option on the emulated 3dfx Voodoo 3. Dungeon Keeper 2 is next. There are two executables, and I believe the DK.II is the one that we want for our situation. So let's see what happens when I run that executable. I'm getting a message about DINPUT.DLL. So let's have a look at that DLL files. We can see quite a few DLL files for this game. So let's investigate. by right-clicking on the DINPUT.DLL. Let's see if we get some information. Version. Okay, we can see converts direct input 127 to direct input version 8. 2023, so quite recent. Alicia Riedlinger is the name of that person that put together this wrapper. So I follow my process. I create a DLL files subfolder, and I'm gonna move out that file. There's a license file also attached. Interesting. Not all GOG games have the license included, which is a little bit naughty. A lot of these people give away these wrappers for free, but you should include the license. Here's another one from the DirectDraw compatibility project. So let's kick out those. There's also a INI config file where you can change things like AA, AF, and so on. Now, this DLL file, I wasn't sure if it's legit, but look at the date, 1993, 1996, so this is legit. So let's have a look if the game runs. It does indeed. Here we are in the game, Dungeon Keeper 2, running perfectly fine. The next game is Dungeon Siege. There is a DirectDraw.DLL. That's a dead giveaway that there's something fishy going on. Look at that, GOG.com DirectX 127 wrapper. It's got some information here, so this one has to go. So again, I'm creating a subfolder, DLL files, and then the DirectX wrapper is gonna get kicked out. And here we are in the game. This game actually looks quite interesting. I didn't play too much, but I think this is a decent game. If you've played it before, yeah, leave a comment down below. To be honest, any game that you see in this video and you have something to share, please do so. I always love reading your comments. Let's have a crack at fixing Escape from Monkey Island. We are greeted with a menu that says we have to install the game, but it's already installed. We don't get a launcher. Let's try the other executable. And it's saying that the game is, well, it's not installed. We should reinstall it. So there's something else going on here. Figuring out what's happening here was a bit of a personal breakthrough because many other games I was able to now get going. The issue has to do with the registry, and there are a couple of approaches, but I will show you by far the easiest one. At first I used tools like RegShot and the registry changes view. So these programs take a snapshot of the registry before and after installing the game. But I noticed that the registry keys of pretty much all the games, they end up in the same area, so it's really easy to find. So here we are in the registry editor. We click on expanding HKey local machine and then click on software. And because I'm using a 64-bit operating system, we need to open this one here. Wow, 6432 node. And then you can see familiar names, Microprose, there's LucasArts here, Sierra. So these are the registry keys of a lot of the games that are just installed. So let's see if we can find the one for Monkey Island. It's here, Monkey 4, retail, and we can see it has information, for example, like the installation directory. And on the Windows 98 Retro PC, if it can't find this registry, well, then it believes the game wasn't installed correctly. So what we can do is we just right-click on this one here, LucasArts, go export, and then this took me a while to actually figure this out because the registry files created under Windows 11, they don't work directly under Windows 98. But you can click here and select Win9x/NT4 format, yeah, and then you save this in .reg format. I put it on my Retro PC. Let's have a look. Here we go. Keys.reg. This is the naming convention that I chose. Let's have a look at the file. Now, if you do it the new method that I just explained, you don't have to do this bit at the top, which is changing the header. That is already done for you. But you definitely need to get rid of this part because we're running it on a 64-bit machine. So you might find that path several times. So after editing it, save that file. We double click on the registry file. It will load it into the registry. And now when we run the game, it should work. And here we are in the game. This is one I have never played. The concept of a point-and-click adventure game going into 3D just never appealed to me. But if it's worth checking out, let me know. And the hardest nut to crack is CD digital audio. A lot of the retro games came on a compact disc and had audio tracks for music. So here we are in Quake II, and after a while it will launch a time demo sequence, and usually there's a metal track that kicks in, but nothing. We hear the sound effects, but no music. And to explain what's going on here, we have to dig a little bit deeper and provide some background information. Here I'm digging in the bowels of Windows 98 in the system folder. There's one specific file that I'm chasing. It's this one here, winmm.dll. So remember this DLL, winmm.dll. And I'll try to summarize it in simple terms. I might get some technical aspects wrong, but basically this DLL played a big part in playing CD audio from the disk. Under Windows 98, everything worked fine, but with more modern operating systems, Windows XP and especially Windows Vista, something changed in that DLL, and games that would loop CD audio tracks, suddenly the music would only play a single time. So, of course, the community came up with some workarounds, and one of the first one was this one here, the underscore in mm.dll, which has Japanese origins, and this would stream OGG or MP3 files from the hard drive instead of accessing the CD-ROM drive. There are many other solutions that do the same thing. You might be familiar with the DXWND project. I actually thought this stands for DirectX Wand, like the magic wand fixes your old games, but it stands apparently for windowed. So a little bit disappointed. And if you download it and you dig a little bit deeper, there's a CD-ROM emulator integrated. Here's another project, OGG-WinMM. And the person behind this one is Bang STK. And here's another project, also named OGG-WinMM by this person here, Auanx. I'm not quite sure how to pronounce this one. Very interesting. This person actually mentions Windows 98. It actually can be used under Windows 98, but I never got this to work. I left a comment in the forum, but I haven't gotten a reply yet, so maybe I'm missing something. But anyway, back to the Retro PC, and I'll show you a workaround. There are a couple of clues. One is the music folder. If you see a subdirectory called music and there are OGG or MP3 files in there, you are dealing with the CD digital audio emulation issue. Another giveaway is that you might see the WinMM.DLL in the game folder, but it might have a different name. And you can also see these OGG files, libOGG and libvobis. All these DLL files are a dead giveaway. Here I'm inspecting the WinMM.DLL, see if there's any information, but unfortunately they didn't leave us any breadcrumbs to help out. So what we're trying to achieve is that the game doesn't use these new DLL files at all and only talks to the system level WinMM and then accesses a CD-ROM that we insert into our optical disk drive. Now, playing OGG files on a Pentium or Pentium 2, it might be actually too system intense. Here I'm just checking if the game actually still runs. So you might have noticed I removed all these DLL files, but the game still works because it now accesses the WinMM.DLL in the system folder. And what I'm doing next is, this is PCM, so I will mount the Quake II CD-ROM into the disk drive. Here we go, Quake II, the cue sheet, there's the disk, and fingers crossed, if we launch the game now, it should stream the music. So Actually, before we do that, let's run the built-in CD player, see if that works. You might not have your CD audio cable connected, so this is a good test to see if everything works. And now let's run the game again. We're waiting for the time demo in the beginning. Let's see what happens. There you go, music restored just like back in the day. The next game is Total Annihilation, a really awesome game. And here it's complaining, Win32.DLL expects a newer version of Windows. So here we are not quite sure what's going on. Let's see if we find any clues. Again, there are no breadcrumbs for us to follow, but the issue again is with CD-ROM emulation. Under music, we can see MP3 files, so this is a dead giveaway. So as always, I'm creating a DLL files subfolder. The Win32.DLL gets moved out of the game folder. Let's run the game, see what happens. Unfortunately, it insists that the Win32.DLL file is in the folder, but we don't want that. We want the game to use the WinMM.DLL file. So what we have to do is use a hex editor. HXD is the program. There's a version for Windows 98. We're opening the executable, and then I'm going to replace the instance of Win32.DLL with WinMM.DLL. So basically, I'm undoing what GOG did to break the game. We're undoing it to fix the game. There you go. One occurrence. We save the file, and the game should now... Oh, look at that. Windows 98 doing what it loves to do. Turn on the active desktop. That's Windows 98 for you. So let's launch the game, and it should work. There we go. We are in the game. Let's start a skirmish, and we will find out there is no music running. Well, actually, there is music running. This is still the Quake II CD, so let's swap it out and start again. Here we go. Let's load the CD into the drive. This is the setup program launching automatically. And here we go. The music should kick in, and there you go. It's streaming the music from the disk. So yeah, unfortunately, it means that you will have to deal with physical media, but until I figure out how to stream WAV files, MP3 files, or OGG files from within Windows 98, if you know how to do that, well, I would love to hear from you. But I still think physical disks will continue to be important, or at least a CD drive emulator, because these processors are just not that fast. You need the power for the game, and decoding video, decoding audio in the background is actually going to consume quite a bit of CPU power. This is the GOG release of incoming. Well, look at that. We can see Win32.DLL, we can see lib.ogg.dll, we can see OGG files in the music folder. A dead giveaway what's going on here. Now, this game has a lot of launch parameters that if you don't know about, it can be annoying. So I'm adding the dash screen mode parameter. At least you get an option to choose the resolution and the color depth. Next, I'm dealing with the DLL files, moving them out. So we've got the Win32.DLL, and then those 3 DLL files to do with the ogvorbis. Let's take them out. And then, of course, we need the hex editor, because, again, this game uses Win32.DLL, so we need to undo what GOG did, patch the executable, replacing Win32.DLL with WinMM.DLL, hit the replace all button. There's only one occurrence. Boom, there you go. Let's insert the incoming CD into the emulator. It will pop up with the installation screen. That is quite normal. Let's launch the game and see if we can hear the music. Excellent, working beautifully. The next game on our list is Messiah, and we can see there's nGlide. We can also see there are the ogvorbis.dll files and WinMM.DLL. The good news is, because it's named WinMM.DLL, we will not have to use the hex editor. All we have to do is move those DLL files out of the game folder. I'm doing that here. I created the subfolder, and then let's identify all the DLL files that we don't want and move them out. And here we are in the game, looking good. I've never played this one. As always, if you have something to share about any of these games you see in the video, please let me know. And now I want to draw attention to the Zoom platform. I bought a few games from them in the past, but in terms of what I saw and how they package the game, this is really the gold standard. They're doing such a good job. This is the release of Incoming Trilogy, and it's the only digital release with Incoming Subversion. They also have both versions, the Incoming 3DFX version and the USA version, with the USA version having a lot more CD digital audio soundtracks. Also, look at that. DRAW.DLL with a configuration file. So they're using a different wrapper. We can see it here. DRAW compat. And they've got the license files. They've got the WinMM.DLL file. So we can clean this out without having to do any hex editing. All the DLL files have information supplied. There's also a change log, which is very detailed, unlike what you get with GOG. So this is really the gold standard. It was a joy to get the games going from the Zoom platform. So just a little personal plug from me. And here we go. Incoming Subversion is loading. It has unique levels. The music is still the same, I believe. Maybe some of the tracks are different. I'm not sure. And also the graphics here are a little bit corrupted, but I think this is the Voodoo 3 emulation not working 100%. Now, not every game worked for me. This is Redline, and I'm following the same process. I can identify some DLL files. I'm creating a subfolder to clean them out. And at first, everything looks good. We're running the executable. We get a nice launcher where we can change resolution and other aspects. So everything is looking good. But later in the game, here it's loading, I think, the first level. Eventually, it just freezes and locks up the machine. So in such situations, well, I keep a list of the progress of fixing these games. And eventually, when I work with a new project, I will test some of the games that gave me issues. But all in all, most games I was able to get going. So guys, this has been really interesting testing all these games. I wasn't able to produce much content this week because mucking around with these games and taking images in the virtual machine and all of that, it took quite some time. But it's not as dark and gloomy as it sounds. I was a little bit afraid that with new operating systems coming out, that games will become less and less compatible with old computers, but it seems there are more modern wrappers available now. GOG in the background are also changing things. I've been seeing new wrappers and workarounds, and actually they make things a little bit easier. Often they are more clearly documented, and yeah, the consensus is sure, some games, well, I couldn't get going. That is just the reality of the situation. But I've only just started to go through my library, and already I have so many more games that now run on my Retro PC. So this is really exciting. More games for maybe benchmarking or showcasing in some of my videos. In a perfect world, companies like GOG, Steam, or the Zoom platform, they would supply the original disk images, but I do understand their point of view. They're selling games to people running modern computers that just want to go back in time and scratch their itch for some retro nostalgia. Also, another confirmation how awesome the retro PC gaming community is. A lot of these workarounds I found in old threads and forum discussions. Knowledge may be long lost, but it's still out there if you dig long enough and you have the passion and the desire to get these old games going. And in that spirit, I hope this helps one of you out there. Maybe there's a game that you really want to play, but GOG or Steam messed it up because they want to make it run under Windows 10, Windows 11. So hopefully we can reverse those fixes and make it work again under Windows 98. I'd love to hear from you, your experience with getting digital games running under Windows 98 or maybe MS-DOS. What tips and tricks, what workarounds have you come up with, or have you given up and you just get digital images from the games online, or maybe you're hunting down copies on eBay? I would love to hear from you. And with that, well, thank you so much for watching. Thank you for all the support on the channel, and I shall see you soon with another video.